What were we mentioning that you said you didn't have a clue about? You were too young.
Not much about Bowie.
Bowie, that's right, because he was
Let's
too
Dance
young.
was the first one of his.
Let's change the subject now.
Yeah, change the subject.
Yeah,
Let's Dance was the first that he heard. Okay, now who sent this in? Which one of you? It's about which one of you is motivated, creative, and passionate?
The words that kill your CV.
David.
I love this. I mean, it's very much. It sort of follows on from what we were just talking about, And I love the first sentence as well. CVs have become meaningless bingo cards.
Bingo cards.
Job hunters will be better off losing the buzzwords and sticking to truthful statements.
It's from The Guardian, by the way, for people want to go.
Why do we feel the need to make these predictable statements about ourselves when going for a job? And it's true, there's so many people out there who are passionate and creative and motivated, and I'm enthusiastic and driven and strategic.
Aren't we all?
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
And actually, that's not true.
No, it says here that here's the link, you see. Social media accounts are dotted with self-promotion and self-congratulation.
Yeah.
Professionals are filling up their LinkedIn pages with a series of over-familiar claims.
Yeah.
We are a nation of motivated, creative people. Everything is awesome and everyone is passionate and enthusiastic. We're driven, strategic, and have a track record of extensive experience.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Go on. I was going to say, and following on there, it just says, all of these things tell us nothing about anything. And
as it says, why would you need to boast about your integrity?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, you would say that, wouldn't you? I'm honest.
Yeah. I mean, it just that does it for me. And they picked later on in the article, they picked a great comment out that was Kevin Spacey's character in the film American Beauty, and who said, honestly, I'm looking for the least possible amount of responsibility. And actually, in the end, people, in the main, my experience, they want to get paid as much as they can for doing as little as they can. And that doesn't mean people won't be responsible and be accountable for their job. But at the end of the day, they also want a life that's straightforward and they understand where they fit and the dynamics of it all. So they aren't necessarily passionate and enthusiastic, certainly not all the time. And not everybody can be driven.
But what would you do, you two, if I'm looking for one of these senior roles and I send you a CV which says, I'm not really that passionate. I don't jump up and down and hoop and holler about my job, and I'd like to do a little bit less than I used to. I'm getting a bit on in years. Anyway, recruit me. What would you do?
Oh, gosh. Well, I would start off by looking at the document that you'd presented me, and I would actually make sure, because with an individual, I'm not talking about using a headhunter just at the minute, an individual must have a marketing document. Let's take the words curriculum vitae out of it. It must be a marketing document that clearly tells the reader in a maximum of 2 pages who they are, and what they're looking for. And a little bit of their career history showing some successes, some of their key achievements. And actually, the old BS won't do. It's got to be factual.
And is that stuff in that I don't know whether it's still the fashion, but years ago, it's 20 years since I had a CV, because I worked for myself for 20 years, but when I did have a CV, I was always told you need to put that introductory paragraph. Mike is a passionate, motivated, blah-de-blah-de-blah.
Don't need it. Some people like it. Some people put it in, some people don't. I think there's so many opinions about CVs.
What's yours?
Well,
do you read that stuff?
Yes, if somebody puts it in there, if I think that it's we need to relook at it. But in the end, I'm with Joanna in that it should be factual. And the way you make yourself stand out, you don't have to say I'm passionate and then I'm this and I'm that. If you've got some very specific factual achievements, if you're an accountant and you've managed X amount of money and you've been involved in initiatives and things like that highlight your practical skills, then that's what you talk about. If you're a salesperson and you've been involved in sales drives and you talk about the results that you've got, there's all sorts of ways to highlight. It doesn't have to be stating passion, just to highlight the practical ways that you benefit a business. So there's lots of ways of showing that skill without actually gushing and being over the top and unrealistic.
Well, I was always told, this was a theory, that first paragraph gave them some central characteristics of yourself. You then went on to list the results, the objective outcomes of your employment so far, but they were in a different category to those characteristics. Is there any point? Could you not sort of put a little paragraph which says, look, I don't go in for all this guff, let my results speak for themselves, read below?
And you know what? You could.
But you'd be brave. to do that.
Yeah, but there are people who put out videos highlighting their skills, and send those to companies in creative world. There's all kinds of ways to promote yourself. It doesn't have to be a bland piece of paper. But what most people do,
people do CVs on weird things just to get noticed, don't they?
Absolutely.
What most people do on their CV, if they haven't been shown how to do things, is they regurgitate the job spec of the job they think they were doing. And we did this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And actually, when you actually go into it, a lot of the stuff, A, they didn't do, and B, they don't want to do again. So you need to highlight the things, and this is where what Joanna said comes in again, is your highlight, what is it they want to do? So the CV has to be orientated to the jobs that they're applying for and what it is they want to do. Otherwise, you're selling something that actually in the end you don't want to be selling. So you have to be sensible about it.
It comes back to, if somebody's preparing a CV, they've actually got to know themselves.
Yeah.
And if they don't know themselves, what on earth are they putting on the piece of paper? A CV is often, not always, the document that gets them through the door. And it is so important, and so little time and effort is put into it. I get very frustrated. I've even had recently a 10-page CV from somebody who's so intelligent that I actually had to say, look, 10 pages, who has got the time to read 10 pages? And actually, from reading the first page, if I didn't know you, I wouldn't know what sector you worked in, what you actually did.
The article does also, though, flag up maybe the cliche mongers are being cleverer than we think. Not the guy who's writing the guy who's writing 10 pages. It says here the use of applicant tracking systems by many companies might tempt you to actually do this.
And the algorithms that look for buzzwords.
That's it, isn't it?
And that is where people get lucky. And that's also, it's so badly used with large companies because you will get the few profiles that fit those buzzwords, and you'll miss out on a whole chunk of people who will never even get the opportunity to have a conversation with somebody, who are very, very well equipped to do the role and actually have a factual, solid description of what they can do, and just don't get the opportunity to.
But they point out that probably
forwards.
It's the people who are writing the software that include these buzzwords that are at fault. Because if that's what you're looking for, that's what you'll get.
Companies buy them, and they quite often have those buzzwords fitted around what their requirements are. A manager within the business is saying, "Can you make it this, that, and the other for us?" It's bespoke in the end.
And you're losing a whole raft of talent.
Yeah.
And it comes down at the end of the day to actually putting a whole job search in a program and actually dealing with it professionally. And the last thing in the world you're going to think about is your CV, because it's the hardest document for any individual to actually write.
And that's something I wanted to say, in that increasingly now I say to people, don't worry about your CV. I will put a synopsis together, I will summarise your experience, and I will talk to the client about why they should meet with you. They can have a summary of what you've done and any key achievements that you and I think are relevant for the role. Other than that, I don't want you to have the burden of trying to describe yourself or put your words on a piece of paper. We'll work on that together when we sit down and meet, and we'll bounce that document backwards and forwards a couple of times, and that's what we'll talk through with the client. It's a tool to facilitate a conversation, and after that it's about how you get on with them when you look them square in the eye, and try and step away from CVs and that sort of stuff.
So is that then a document, if I've read it correctly, that you write on or draft on their behalf? So it almost reads like, I have met this person and let me tell you what I think their characteristics are.
In part,
That's interesting.
yes. And there are search businesses who will, it's quite common in the search world, especially the more senior things that people do. They will put in their own impressions of that person, and the CV may be a secondary document.
Right.
But increasingly with the senior people, I don't even go that route. And the clients know me well enough now that that's what they expect.
Well, senior people, their reputations go ahead of them anyway, so, a CV is almost irrelevant.